For many gamers, cartridge-based handhelds are a quintessential part of their nostalgia for retro gaming. Millions of people have childhood memories of bringing their Game Boy on the go, or even cult classics like the Neo Geo Pocket. There was nothing quite like arriving at an airport or beginning a long car ride and inserting one of these magical cartridges into a portable for the first time. For this reason, it is no surprise that many retro handhelds and their libraries of games now function as popular collectibles today. For some though, those tactile experiences and memories of yesteryear are simply not enough. And that is where the Evercade comes in, a traditional cartridge-based handheld that celebrates the physicality of retro gaming. So with all that said, I am Lady Decade, and this is the story of the Evercade. In the disturbing year of 2020, humanity was in the thralls of the early days of the global coronavirus pandemic. Every aspect of life was fully impacted, including entertainment, and even movies and TV shows we enjoyed in some circumstances pausing production. In this strange era, the development of new consoles, games, and DLC like movies was often delayed. But amongst the haze of confusion and delay, many companies continued their production remotely. With many stuck in their homes in this eerie period of downtime, many would intensify their connection with gaming, including many gamers choosing to revisit great titles from their past. Considering all of this, ever since these events have unfolded, it has been a perfect time for retro games to be repackaged and released on the cheap. As of today, on any of the current consoles, players have a wealth of ports of classic titles to be played, whether from the Nintendo Switch online service, providing subscription access to games from their consoles, the Antstream service delivering over 1,000 titles to the Xbox or PC, Sega constantly releasing new collections of their classic titles or fully rebuilding them in the case of Sonic Origins, or Capcom bundling their arcade classics for online play in the modern day. It'd be hard to say the major titles were being ignored. Street Fighter 2, Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Metroid will always be playable. But what about the leftovers? The independent games, the ones you might have rented from Blockbuster on a slow weekend, or the licensed titles that would have problems seeing the light of day. The Sly Spies, the Libble Rabbles, and the City Connections. Games you might have seen in the arcade once, got as a gift from a distant uncle who knew you liked the video games, or saw in a montage of a certain YouTuber's collection of games you missed. So could a handheld succeed that featured a library of games that were mostly like this? Well, let's discuss. On the surface of the announcement of the Evercade, players might have been a bit confused. Blaze was a company behind the project associated with low-budget Sega Mega Drive reproductions, but come 2020 the company had been reinvigorated and began producing a brand new handheld in the form of the Evercade. A console that some didn't even believe would ever exist when we take into account the drama around the cartridge-based vaporware, the Coleco Chameleon and other crowd-funded projects that never came to fruition. So while many liked the idea of the Evercade, many were skeptical regarding if it would even happen. But after a minor amount of delays from the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, by May 2020, all doubters would be proved wrong. The diminutive widescreen handheld was the real deal and would even manage to be released internationally. What's more, for once, Americans would struggle to import the device, as Blaze Entertainment is a UK-based company. The company would work out deals with companies to import them to America, and eventually Amazon and Best Buy would stock the hardware along with a selection of games. Still, for once, we Brits got easy access to the hardware first. This fully makes up for not getting a Chrono Trigger, Mario RPG, Earthbound or Final Fantasy VI, right? So, if you could get your greasy paws on an Evercade, what would you receive? And why would you want one of these things? Well, while the 4x3 LCD screen isn't a particular standout, especially in the era of OLED Nintendo Switches, Retina display iPhones, and massive displays on the Steam Deck, the 6-button console is more than capable of handling the target games it focuses on, 8-bit and 16-bit classics that haven't been bundled with various other collections over the years, arcade titles that might never have seen a trip home, and home computer adventures lost to the machines that never truly truly gained a foothold outside of the UK. The Evercade thrives on its cartridge collections, single physical cartridges, which frequently bundle several titles from one publisher. By the time of this video, they've released around 50 collections in the short 3 years since the launch, with many still in production and available, commonly released in pairs and frequently bundled with new console iterations. Some cartridges, frequently priced from $20 to $25, can include up to 20 titles and cover a wide berth of original consoles. For example, the Atari Collection 1 and 2 cover the 2600 and 5200, and 2 Atari Lynx collections would prove to be the first reproduction of that long-forgotten consoles library. This meant that forgotten classics such as the Amazing Chips Challenge could finally thrive on a handheld once more. Speaking of the library, most of the titles come from the NES, Genesis and Super Nintendo, but as of recent releases, PlayStation 1, Game Boy, Color and Advanced titles have been bundled in with others. Even consoles like the Intellivision and the Commodore 64 get console-specific bundles, and Team 17 introduced an Amiga-focused bundle. Furthermore, arcades have received 10 bundles as of the time of the video, collecting everything from Jaleco, Tuaplam, IREM, Atari and Technos. To make this all the more appetizing, it is important to know that many cartridges have been future-proofed to match the full strength of the titles, even if the original hardware couldn't handle it. Vertical-oriented arcade titles would eventually be able to take advantage of a successor's Tate mode, and multiplayer games would be able to embrace their competitive or cooperative nature down the road. Blaze certainly made a commitment to spreading their library far and wide over the years. When it comes to this system, effectively there are a few things to expect from the Evercade line. You won't see games from anybody still making consoles, so no Sony published PS1 titles or anything directly from Nintendo. Companies like Megacat Studios and Pico Interactive, who thrive on purchasing forgotten titles and re-releasing them, go crazy with the console, and indie titles like Xenocrisis, Tanglewood, Alwa's Awakening and Cathedral find mass market releases for their homegrown classics. In a best of a bad situation, some games like Barclay's Shut Up and Jam have had the licensing stripped out, being rebranded as Hoops Shut Up and Jam, which is both hilarious and tragic in equal measure. We haven't seen titles like Revolution X remove Aerosmith yet, but maybe one day we will all be reminded how music is a weapon. But regardless of what you think of this, I guess it's certainly a way to get the games in modern hands. While having a great selection of games is important for those who want to enjoy the Evercade, what is perhaps just as valuable to retro gamers is a handheld that provides a responsive tactile experience that doesn't feel cheap and tacky. So how does the Evercade hold up in this regard? Well, pretty well I guess, as the platform's ergonomic form factor results in a platform that is both well built and comfortable to hold. The visual design of the console embraces a white and red colour scheme, although a black edition was also made available for a limited run. While a handheld device, the mini HDMI output allows players to extend a video game play to a modern TV. Despite this, you won't be able to use this console in a 2-player capacity, as no link cable will be produced for the device. Still, a rechargeable battery allows players to pocket the device for several single-player hours without swapping batteries like in the olden days. But being a quirky device clearly aimed at a specific market, what did the general gaming media think of this ambitious little platform with old-school physical media? PC Mag would sum up that this is no replacement for a Nintendo Switch or Switch Lite, but it doesn't try to be. Instead, the Evercade provides a surprisingly compelling option compared with the drugstore retro systems that generally prove so disappointing. It's a pleasant little portable that you can get for cheap that already offers hundreds of games in its library, with the possibility of more to come thanks to its cartridge design. It's a slightly flawed gem of a retro system and quite fun for such a small, inexpensive device. Eurogamer would likewise choose to highlight the budget approach, writing, "The thing is, it might seem strange to go back to the cartridge medium when you could just drop entire ROM sets on a portable unit, but in reality there is a method to the madness. Beyond the collectability, I found that by focusing on a smaller selection of games, it becomes easier to enjoy each one. At least for me, the giant list of ROMs just leads to not playing anything at all, and there's the sense that games don't get the focus they deserve while also feeling somewhat disposable. In this respect, my feeling here is similar to that from the Capcom Home Arcade, because there were fewer games and a curated choice. I spent more time on each title and gained a greater appreciation of some lower profile games that actually turned out to be very, very good. Clearly, this approach isn't going to appeal to everyone, but as a retro enthusiast, seeing the owners of classic properties compensated for their games, while at the same time opening the door to a new kind of collecting, seems like a really good idea to me. In the case of the Evercade, the core hardware is well made and very nicely priced, so I can see the system finding an audience, and I hope it does. While the original line would start with the simple 6-action button handheld simply known as Evercade, the company would over the years splinter into new revisions. First off would be the home console variant, the Evercade VS, which would multiply all of the capabilities of the original handheld. This included 4 USB slots allowing for multiplayer action, along with 2 bundled controllers that featured additional trigger buttons, making the console more appropriate for the PlayStation ports that would later find their way onto the console. Ingeniously, the device would also feature a dual cartridge system, something Nintendo considered at one point with their DS line, but would finally find its way here. Featuring 2 cartridge slots, players can actually unlock new and unique titles by having particular combos. With the release of a home console, Blaze Entertainment would also start releasing freebie game of the month, with the revised UI allowing for downloads. After this iteration, the company would return to its original baby and upgrade it. The Evercade EXP came out in 2022, bringing a better screen, extra triggers, a Tate mode, Wi-Fi and USB-C charging, alongside many of the UI upgrades the home console got. Infamously, the limited edition version of the console was stolen off the back of a truck, causing a significant delay in getting replacements to the die-hard fans that would back a limited version. Due to the success of the Evercade line, Blaze Entertainment would spin off a new development venture, Hyper Mega Tech, announcing 2 company-specific handhelds, a Taito and a Capcom Super Pocket. This vertically orientated console replicates a bit of the Game Boy Color form factor with pre-installed games from each company. While games are natively running from the operating system, a cartridge slot means Evercade gamers can bring one of their packs on the road without busting out their premium EXP model. If you want to know more about the games included in the Evercade line, a friend of the channel, Bonin, has an ongoing feature to document every single title available in the Every Evercade Ever series on his channel, the Tsundoku Zone, so check that out when you get a chance. Oh yeah, you may also be interested to learn why I am looking for a cougar boy.